Okay, let me set the scene. Hiroyuki Imaishi and his friends at Gainax are hot off the unbelievable success of Tengen Toppaga and Lagon, decide they've earned a little break. With such fun and frivolity in the air, I guess they got a few drinks in them, and before you knew it, someone pitched the idea for a show with angels hunting ghosts with lingerie, and thus Panty and Stocking were birthed into our world. Well, this is a change of pace. Anyway, Panty and Stocking are two fallen angels trying to redeem themselves and earn their way back into heaven by slaying ghosts and protecting the purgatory of Dutton City. However, they're both too preoccupied with their respective obsessions that they pretty much never make ghost slaying and coin collecting a priority. Panty likes sex and Stocking likes sugar, and these two distractions usually prevent the angels from making any real progress. Panty and Stocking are the most vulgar, repulsive, cruel, self-serving bitches to ever disgrace the title of angels, and I freaking love them. These girls know no order and pretty much just do whatever they want without any real consequences. It's awesome. Especially Stocking. I mean, oh my god, she's so amazing. I'm talking like top 5 waifu tier, like Jesus Christ. Anyway, the primary philosophy fueling pretty much every aspect of Panty and Stocking's design is anarchy. The series intentionally showcases an almost complete disregard for pretty established conventions of characterization, theming, presentation, even basic storytelling at certain times. It's absolute goddamn chaos, make no mistake about it, but it always stays true to Hiroyuki Imaishi's mindful and self-aware flavor. The show revels in defying your expectations and showing you something that you couldn't see anywhere else. A few episodes feel like a giant build-up to just one ultimate punchline. The reason Hiroyuki Imaishi is one of my all-time favorite directors isn't just because of the number of consistently high-quality and memorable shows that he's output, but rather the design philosophies that he brings into each of his series, and how much this affects the way the audience engages with it. When a series like Panty and Stocking so proudly flies in the face of so many well-defined customs, you suddenly have to start thinking a lot harder about why the show is making the viewer feel the way it does, whether they end up loving or hating it. Instead of systematically assessing how accurately the show performs under some rigidly defined metric of quality, the question becomes, what is the show doing and how do you feel about it? And if you want to get particularly literary, how did the author expect the audience to interpret what they're seeing? Moving on, Panty turns her underwear into a heavenly handgun while her sister uses stockings as dual-wield katana. Classy, I know. The series is largely structured around episodic ghost hunts, and these ghosts get pretty varied, by which I mean extremely varied. To name a few, there's ghost monster trucks, cheerleaders, zombies, transformers, demon semen, snot, and of course, diarrhea. Be warned, this show really pushes its gross out humor, and while I don't think it blurs the line between sexy and horrific quite as masterfully as a show like Prison School, it definitely keeps you on your toes, while constantly making you wonder how far the show will go for a joke. We're eventually introduced to the demon sisters, Scanty and Knee Socks, who play the role of the angels' polar opposites and consistent rivals. In direct contrast to Panty and Stocking, these two are bound by ultimate order and tact, frequently being disgusted by the angels' behavior and condescendingly telling them how they should act, making their symbolic relevance in the show clear. Thankfully, anarchy always manages to prevail in the end. The show's iconic art design goes hand in hand with its themes, oftentimes getting so energetic and insane that it's hard to interpret what you're actually looking at. Panty and Stocking's overt Western influence in its presentation makes it so visually distinct from any other TV anime that some people have actually debated whether it can technically be considered anime. Gainax cited shows like Archer and Drawn Together of all things as inspiration for the aesthetic, and I can definitely see that. Add in some Powerpuff Girls-esque thick outlines, the color design of a series like Teen Titans Go, and the peppy diminutive character art of Hi Hi Puffy Yumi, and you've got a pretty decent idea of the cultural heritage this show pays homage to. In fact, there's references and shoutouts to Western media spilling out of every crevice, from the blatant B-movie parodies to random shifts in art style. I don't think Imaishi knows how to make a show without cramming endless references wherever he can, and I wholly appreciate that. The show also occasionally shifts to ultra stylish, high quality animation when it feels like it, most notably during the legendary transformation sequences and sporadic shifts in animation techniques. I wouldn't say all of the show's visual ideas work for me though, with background details and characters often being janky and unappealing. The show's explosive madness can also be pretty hard to consume depending on my mood, which leads to one of the most important aspects of the show. Like most shows with this sort of massively episodic structure, everyone's going to have their own favourite and least favourite episodes of Panty and Stocking. The definite highlights for me are the showdown with the Demon Sisters, that awesome bottle episode, and Stocking's brief romance with a repulsive ghost. This episode plays its drama surprisingly straight, and despite being totally gross, it manages to be legitimately heartwarming and romantic through the earnest presentation of Stocking's feelings and the sentimental ending. It also brings out the most human aspects of Panty and Stocking's characters, so to speak, reminding the viewer that if there's one thing these girls actually care about, and there is just one thing, it's each other. The Little Tokyo segment was also ingenious, contrasting the show's art and tone so drastically that you'd be forgiven for thinking you're watching a different show entirely. Following the hyper-realistic, vaguely oppressing life of an overworked salaryman is hilarious in its own right, but it's made 10 times funnier by the fact that it directly follows a segment about nose picking. It all clicked for me when I heard the ending theme, which is a beautiful, somewhat melancholic love song with a distinct reggae funk flavour. This serene, low-tempo number was so markedly removed from the actual content of the series that it kind of blew my mind. I remember someone once comparing this song to the experience of listening to Adele right after an episode of Ren and Stimpy. The entire soundtrack is pretty exceptional, filled with electronic dance and techno tunes, but Fallen Angel always stood out to me. This insane level of juxtaposition pretty much put the entire series into perspective for me, and still stands as one of my all-time favourite ending themes in anime, not just for being a banging track in its own right, but for perfectly bookending the experience taking in the show's madness, and that right there may be my biggest point against the show. By its very nature, Panty and Stocking is the type of show that I'm only really in the mood for once in a while. Unlike shows like Space Dandy or Kino's Journey, Panty and Stocking can pretty much only convey one type of atmosphere for the most part: spazzy, racy, high energy fun, which makes the experience of watching the show very similar between episodes. Panty and Stocking can basically be considered a sitcom, so in the event that the jokes aren't hitting as hard as they should, suddenly a massive chunk of the show's appeal is diminished. It's similar to something like Aria or Mushishi, in that I have to be in a very specific frame of mind to really want to strap myself in for the Panty and Stocking ride. The show doesn't have nearly the level of detail or depth of character that can be found in other Hiroyuki Imaishi works, nor does it have anything as meaningful to say. Also, as is a trend for shows of this structure, the episodes do tend to run the gambit of quality, with some stories that I outright dislike, such as Chuck's Little Escapade. Sometimes the show's overwhelming spazziness goes right past charming and moves on into headache-inducing territory, but then again it all depends on my mood, and I can't really say that about most of my favourite shows. This lunacy also characterises the show's English dub, which largely revises the original script to give it more flavour, which of course means insane amounts of vulgarity. Funimation didn't revise the script quite as drastically as they have other shows, but be prepared for an onslaught of obscenities in pretty much every sentence. Now my favourite show is South Park, so I have no problem dealing with dirty words, and I find the script and performances mostly fantastic. It's just so much more spazzy and insane and comparatively much more grounded and subdued Japanese performances. Again, it all depends what you're in the mood for. The dub seems to have become quite the hit, with the reissued Japanese Blu-rays actually containing the English voice track with Japanese subtitles because so many of the show's Japanese fans preferred it. So yeah, to be completely clear, I do consider Panty and Stocking to be a fantastic series. It's just a fantastic series that I can only fully enjoy every now and then. It seems to be somewhat less ambitious than a lot of its ilk, and the relatively small avenue of appeal brings a feeling of smallness to Panty and Stocking that you just don't find in most other shows by the director, which ultimately makes me value it less. But then again, I don't think this show would really approve of me comparing it so rigidly to other series, so maybe I should stop talking and just be happy that they all exist. If you're an angel and feel as though the show misrepresented you and your culture, please leave a comment and tell your side of the story below.